Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Executive Table Talk. My name is JT O'Donnell. I'm the founder and CEO of Work It Daily and the host of today's show. Today, we're talking about how to improve talent acquisition, a subject that is near and dear to my heart. But I am bringing on a team of executive experts to talk about it from their various points of view. I think not only do they all come from a diverse set of industries, but also have some really different mindsets about talent acquisition, different from what you may hear from recruiters. So very excited to bring them onto the show today. So let's not waste any time. Hello, executives. Everyone doing okay? Yeah? Good. John, I'm going to pick on you first. I would love to hear, you come from the education background. What's your thought on talent acquisition strategies these days?
Definitely, and thank you, JT. So I'm actually going to take that question from the back end. And while, especially in education right now, we're really concerned about the fact that we have so many teaching openings and nobody's applying. So we actually have a situation where many people are coming into the teaching profession on emergency certification. So they don't actually have any training or any background. And yet, when they get into a classroom, they're in charge of it. There's no mentorship. They're running their own show. And so what I've taken away from this is the need to really be providing support to new hires after we hire them. We spend so much time and money on recruiting, but if our people are struggling, and I think this goes for many industries, if our people are struggling or don't actually have the background knowledge we need, or we want them to develop in certain areas, we need to be providing training in-house on the spot. So that would be my takeaway for folks today. And that is, don't just think of recruiting as bringing people in. You need to also sustain those people and ensure that they stay with you in the long run. Because if they leave within a year or so, that's a loss of money in recruiting them, and you have to do it all over again.
Amazing thoughts, John. And I love that, it's talent acquisition versus attrition. What's the point, right? If it's just falling out of the bottom of the funnel. I do think it's interesting, though. You have so many teacher openings and trying to rally people to want to teach. Are you seeing the education system taking a strategic approach towards how to get more people actually interested in the profession? What are your thoughts on that real quick?
Definitely. So it depends on the system. So you have certain school systems that are now growing their own. So if you look at education, in a lot of schools, they'll have what are called paraprofessionals. Usually these are community members from the local community, but they usually do not have, again, the background to teach. But there is a growing number of grow your own programs where the school system, in connection with a training program such as Relay Graduate School or Grow Your Own Initiative, are looking for ways to train these folks and get them certified in an expedited way. So that way we can be bringing in more of those kinds of teachers who come from the communities in which they're serving, which has the double goal of promoting equity and making sure that we get more people who look like our students, who are from the same communities as our students, into teaching roles. So I am hopeful that those kind of grow your own programs are taking hold. And then you also have school systems that partner with certain graduate schools of education or undergraduate programs in education, where the students are actually getting their student teaching experience, but then hopefully will take those roles, those full-time roles, after they graduate. And I see more systems being systemic in targeting certain programs of students who actually, like I said, come from the backgrounds of their students. So there are different models out there. There's also the model where I know of one school, and I think I blogged about it recently, in Kentucky, where their students, if they agree after they graduate to come back to their town where they grew up and go through an expedited program, much of that program will be paid for. And then they usually have to commit for a certain number of years, 3 to 5. But all of those strategies are good ways of looking at how we can get a different kind of teacher and new teachers back in those teaching seats.
Love it. I love the innovation there. That's fantastic. Speaking of innovation, Kirsten, you coach CEOs on a regular basis. I can't imagine they're not talking about talent acquisition. What's your take on all this?
Yes, 100%. So, John, you don't need validation, but I ran a standalone K-12 school for over a decade and
Nice.
used every single strategy you just spoke of. So,
Love it.
Well said. Acquiring talent is on the minds of every executive I work with. And if it's not on their minds, it is on the minds of their immediate team. Having employees to turn your strategic vision into operational excellence is one of the most critical priorities of any leader. I find it amazing and a little scary that leaders feel their strategic recruitment efforts, 84% of leaders right now find their strategic recruitment efforts are failing. Why? Why is that? In analyzing that data, it comes down to one thing: impression. We've all heard the Maya Angelou saying, we don't often remember what people say, but we always remember how they make us feel. It is no different when it comes to talent acquisition, onboarding, employee retention. Your focus is on how you make your candidates feel throughout every stage of that talent acquisition process. I believe there are 4 reasons why your company might be failing at talent acquisition when we consider impression as the main cause. 1, if your company's reputation is maybe not where you want it to be, your potential applicants are walking in with a potentially bad impression. If your hiring team is unprofessional, inexperienced, or using old, antiquated methods, your potential applicants are left with a bad impression. If your internal culture is toxic or behind the times or not what you made it out to be in your advertisements, then your potential applicants are left with a bad impression. And if you provide barely a glimpse of what the job entails or overpromise and underdeliver, which is probably worse, then your potential applicants are left with a bad impression. I am constantly asking my leaders, how do you want this person to feel? This is truly where I suggest we start when thinking about talent acquisition.
I love it so much. So, you're speaking my language. We're very much into employer branding at Work It Daily. Yeah. We're constantly talking to people about, look, if you just want to hire anybody under the age of 30 today, you really need to think about how you make them feel, especially online, right? Just this idea that it's a quick Google search or a quick social media search to get a sense of how in touch your company is with this concept, which is mind-blowing to me. And my question to you really quickly, Kirsten, is, do you think it's a question of these CEOs just haven't spent enough time in the recruiting space, or they're just, age, they're older, they're not thinking about this in the same way? Why do you think they just haven't realized that yet?
Yeah, I think often recruiting is not given the same attention, maybe budget and focus as your sales or your marketing or your development departments, right? Yet they are responsible for just as much of your bottom line. And for some reason, they are treated differently. They're not given those resources. And I think that is a real tactical place to start. But where that cognitive bias is coming from is a great question, JT. Yeah. I hope it's not age. I don't want to say that it's age because I think I've seen evidence of, some very savvy individuals that cross different decades. Let's just put it that way.
I couldn't agree more. Great answer. Bouncing down to you, Anna, you work in global consulting, also work with executives. What are your thoughts on talent acquisition these days?
This is definitely a huge topic, just like both Kristen and John have, provided. And I'm still reflecting on all the great insights from the educational perspective. John, thank you for that. As I think about it, there are some very important opportunities to consider for any organization. We know that there is no one size fits all, but we do know that there are some important opportunities. Like, for example, with the applicant tracking systems, when anybody wants to apply for a job, as we know, and they go in and, with all their heart and their mind, start an application there, and they are not even, those applications are not even seen by a human because of all the different filters that are provided. I would invite organizations as they look to embrace these different innovative technologies. What is the fine tuning that you guys are putting into, or the filters that you're putting into those applicant tracking systems, so that you really get a bigger bang for your buck? And rather than just be a 95% filter for everything, what are some of the specific things that you might be able to gain, down the road? Another very important thing is, and this is something that I personally experienced, is how do you, in an organization, and Kristen alluded to this as well, is how do you personalize those candidate experiences? I remember distinctly in one organization that I worked for, as I was coming to, to the organization to start my job the following week, not only my boss, but my boss's boss sent me emails, welcoming me and making sure that they knew, that I knew that they were already waiting for me, and in a very, very warm and candid way, very, very beautiful aspect. And then, of course, arriving and having a nice packet of things once you arrive into the organization. They're really expecting you. You have everything set up, your computer, you have your desk, if you're going to work exactly or inside and in-house the organization, etc., or if you're going to do remote, exactly the same thing. You are ready to hit the ground running with all of the different characteristics that are going to be required. Building that employer brand. If organizations still to this day believe that people out there have not yet discovered what Google is and are not researching them in the same way that they validate and look at people's profiles in social media, that's exactly the same thing that people do when they're going to go into an organization, checking Glassdoor and other sources. So it's very, very important. Employees or potential employees are also getting smarter in how they want to in the organizations that they want to be part of, and what is that compelling story that you are as an employer building as part of this brand. One additional couple of topics that I would like to mention. One is, as organizations build and execute on their interviews, don't only focus on the open positions at hand, but also if you guys find awesome candidates that could be for future positions inside the organization, you need to make sure that you have a talent pipeline strategy in place so that you continue to engage that. I know at the senior level, that is one of the things that we typically did as part of succession planning, and for the higher ups in organizations. You don't only have candidates that could be ready now to go into a very senior position in the organization that are internal candidates, but you also know externally who you could bring to fill in those positions. So think about that, those having a strategy to develop those strong talent pipelines. And I think the last one that I would love to bring forward, which not every organization leverages, is employee referrals. If you're doing everything right, if you're paying attention to these holistically, if it's a system, if everything is interconnected, meaning the talent acquisition to the development to the performance and all the other talent related pillars, your employees will be more than willing to invite people into your own organization and refer them in. And as we know, still to this day, 80 or 85%, you guys may have one or the other statistic there, but one of the preferred ways or the most impactful ways to get into an organization is through a referral. So this works both ways for me as a potential employee of that company, and for those employees internally that might want to say, Anna, there's an opportunity here. So those would be some of the key areas that I would bring. Think of treating potential candidates for your organization as if it was somebody that you really cared and loved. I think that would be, you cannot go wrong with it.
I totally agree. I think candidate experience is everything. And I love that you talked about the continuity. You know, you spoke of your own experience with them, you know, sending you emails and the experience of before you've even started the job. But to your point, if you're not getting internal referrals, you got to ask yourself why. Why are your own employees not wanting to bring people into the company, right? There's certainly a concern there and something to think about. I absolutely love that you shared that. Jumping over to you, Lisa, global marketing, you know, definitely constantly looking for top talent when it comes to this. What are your thoughts on talent acquisition in the digital marketing space?
Well, first, what an engaging discussion. I love all the different thoughts we've been talking about. Anna, the different tools and approaches, John about sustaining employees, and Kirsten about organizational impression. I love it. And I want to give another perspective to the conversation. As a marketer, employer brand marketing is a powerful tool in order to significantly increase the talent acquisition efforts. Remember, talent acquisition is not just about finding the best candidate. It's about ensuring that we're attracting individuals who align with our values, our culture, and our long-term goals. And so here are some ways that employer brand marketing can improve your talent acquisition strategies and help you find the best candidates. First, you want to define your employer brand, and that starts with looking at defining your culture, your mission, and your overall values. And you can do this by conducting internal surveys and interviews in understanding your employees' perspective and experiences, and then aligning that with the overall brand strategy and image. And the second thing you want to do is craft your employer brand message. You want to share your employees' experiences, the career growth, and the positive experience that they can have within your organization. And you want to tailor that message to the different target audiences, the professional, the recent graduate, and the different industry experiences. And this is the great opportunity to share the testimonials and the case studies to provide that authenticity and that credibility to your brand message. And the third thing is to leverage digital and social media. You want to establish a strong online presence by optimizing your career website, creating engaging content that can give validity to your employer brand strategy. You want to share employee story, company news, and showcase your company culture. You want to engage with candidates. You want to respond promptly. And your goal is to create that positive, interactive online experience. And the last, and this is dear and near to my heart, is engage employees as brand ambassadors. Engage and empower them to share their experiences and promote your brand. Think of them just like you would as brand ambassadors and influencers that you're paying out there. Give them the content, because I guarantee you will get more out of them than what you're doing in terms of paying those influencers and brand ambassadors that you have out there. You may not have thought as employer brand marketing when I first started talking, but employer brand marketing is going to help you find the top talent and establish your organization as an employer of choice. So something to think about.
Okay, I'm so excited you talked about this, because two follow-up questions to you. First of all, would you agree that when you invest in employer brand marketing, it's like a 2 for the price of 1? Because if it's done properly, not only are you recruiting talent, but you're reinforcing your company as a brand as a whole, to attract customers, right? I look at that and say, how can companies not see the value of branding their employer experience in order to get more value out of it? So I love your thoughts on that, but I also want to follow it up with this. Why are more recruiting departments not going down the hallway to marketing and saying, I need your help. What do you think's going on there?
Completely. It's a lost opportunity, and I wish there was more of a partnership on that, because we're already doing the work of interviewing internal stakeholders, employees, executives, to understand the company value, culture, mission, to develop that brand strategy, so we can work together to do that employer branding to help. And we want those employee brand ambassadors anyway to promote the company. So it's really a marriage for the two of us to drive and work together. It is that integrated effort that we need to both succeed and thrive.
Yeah, I know. I hope recruiters are listening to this and thinking, I need to walk down the hallway and talk to marketing. I mean, I just do. It's so great. Michael, let's talk NFL, finance operations. What's your thoughts on talent acquisition?
Thank you, JT. This discussion has been really phenomenal with all my colleagues. Talent acquisition brings up two questions in my mind. Which part of the talent acquisition activities that are critical and competitive advantage of the company and its long-term success? What are the major challenges that talent acquisition, and how does the company allocate resources? So in other words, what's the biggest pain? HR and hiring managers sometimes don't communicate. Job descriptions aren't given properly. A hiring process is too long. Poor talent quality, things of this nature. The company's vision should be in lockstep with the company's talent acquisition and retention policies. So I laid out 5 steps that I think that solutions that maybe improve this process. Employee branding is what we need to start with, so our teams look the way that, as far as education, experience, culture, readiness, so that the labor market needs to know that it needs to catch up with talent acquisition process. It might be unfair, but sometimes we have to realize that it's the company's choice. Employers have the right to hire and retain at will. The next step is to level up quality of employees, as Lisa had mentioned, the referral awards program, meaning that employees sometimes don't refer other employees as far as high performers to the company. This practice allows companies to hire the best at low cost. Sometimes the company doesn't need a lot of the best. Sometimes it just needs good employees. And also making recruiting a policy. Build an outside talent pool where that people can, the company has a pool of people and they have a relationship with these people. So when when a need presents itself, it allows the people to, like, if people's on maternity leave or someone leaves the company, they always have someone they have a relationship with they can go to and pick from this pool. And also that leads me to the 4th item, is to build a strong management program. Building a strong management program recognizes strong hires for additional management training. I think these types of programs should be transparent, so available to all employees that fit the criteria. These types of programs are where the vice presidents and C-suite executives are born. The last thing is train HR. Lastly, HR should build a employee database that includes every employee. These database should include service days, promotion, awards, and performance evaluations. Non-promoted employees should be flagged and discussed with their managers as to why they're stagnant, why aren't they moving on in their progression. Thank you.
Yeah, great outline, Michael. Especially, I just want to hit on the part you talked about making like a management program, an upskilling program transparent for all. I worked with somebody who, and I won't name the name, but it's a very large, well-known bank, had a program where you filled out a 45-minute questionnaire online to apply for this management program. 45 minutes of their time agonizing over the questions, only for this person to be auto-rejected, instantly told they didn't make the cut. And when you talked about that, I think about how important it is to, really think through the impact. All of you have talked about it, but think through the impact your existing policies and things that you're doing have on your staff, and how that ripple effect that's going to spread. I mean, she went out and told dozens of people about being rejected and left the company within 2 months.
That's impression right there.
Yeah,
Right? That's impression.
Yeah,
Kirsten,
definitely.
absolutely.
Yes.
I just think it's so interesting that people aren't looking at this. Now, I want to bring up so many great comments today. By the way, folks, really quick, these are your amazing executive experts from Work It Daily. Please jot their names down right now. Go find and follow them on LinkedIn. And then, of course, go ahead and ask them to connect with you as well, but let them know you saw them on ETT. While I'm doing that, please post your questions in the comments. I know there'll be a lot today, but I want to hit on this one, John. John's a listener, and John's making a great point. He says, in a recession period of time, like right now, we're seeing a shift. Talent acquisition has been constantly considered as the cost center for the organization. So you go from recruiting a lot of talent to not needing to recruit as much. Now suddenly recruiting's going, wait, they don't need us. So what would the best strategy be to reposition themselves? What are some of the things that recruiting can do when they're not so busy, right? When they're not flat out just, doing phone screens all the time and trying to find talent that you think could really help to this? Because we all know as executives that this just kind of swings back and forth. We might hit this little drought period right now, but we're going to blink and be back to busy again. Anybody have any thoughts on that? Throw a hand up. All right, let's start with you, Michael.
Yes, like I mentioned, having a talent pool, maybe having a pool of folks that you have that covers various positions. So when there is a need in your organizations, you have someone that's been vetted, that you can go to, and you can kind of just keep an eye on them. You can recruit them when you need it. So I think having a talent pool is very important.
Wonderful. John, what about you? Oh, throw on that mute.
I'm going to piggyback on what Lisa said, and that's really when you could really be engaging your branding team, right? You could really be using that time to develop those case studies of the work that your organization does. In my line of work, when I work with teachers going for interviews, I always tell them to use the STAR method, which is describe a situation, task, the actions you took, and the results and the impact. Because something else about the younger generations coming up in the working world, they want to have a social impact. They want to have some kind of dividend of doing well. At least I think many of them do. So how can you as a corporation, whether for-profit or not-for-profit, show what impact you have so that way others see, yeah, that's an organization I want to be a part of.
Yeah, I agree. Anybody else? Kirsten?
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity to evaluate your systems and start looking for, number one, where do you still have maybe some bias or lack of systems or process in your recruiting and talent acquisition, right? Are you still looking at names and years and things like that in your interview process and on your applications? Where can you start to eliminate things that have kept what we know is to be non-scientific and evidence-based practices inside of your processes, and use that downtime to just shed that stuff and renew your practices? I think another way to not look like a cost center, but a cost savings, is start to evaluate the cost of turnover. I knew for my direct care staff that it cost $5,000 every time I had to rehire somebody and train them. So every time we saved somebody from leaving, that was $5,000 in savings. So the cost of turnover is a real dollar cost. And if you can turn that into dollars saved, put that on the line item for your department, then you know what your department is saving instead of costing the company.
Yeah. Can I also just dive in here and say, walk down the hall to marketing. Recruiters need to go spend time with marketing, become the employer branding arm of the recruiting department, learn new skills, because you're going to need them when suddenly you need to go hire a bunch of people. You could be partnering up with marketing. Am I right, Lisa?
Yeah. And I just wanted to add on to what Kirsten said is it's so important to measure and demonstrate value, establish key performance indicators to measure the effectiveness and impact of talent acquisition initiatives, showcase the value and the ROI of the talent acquisition efforts to stakeholders by demonstrating successful hires, reduced time to fill, improved quality of candidates and cost savings. And this is the time to implement cost-effective sourcing strategies, utilizing cost-effective channels such as employee referrals, social media platforms, and online job boards. So those two things, this is the time to start looking at that and implementing those.
I couldn't agree more. Great answers across the board. And I just want to say, shout out to one of our followers today, Milan. She had typed in before Kirsten even commented, maybe a good pivot is to focus on retention instead of recruitment. So obviously our audience has the same ideas as all of you, my executive crew. Well, that brings us to the end of another amazing Executive Table Talk. Folks, I'm leaving them up there for one more second. Jot their names down. These are the executives that have the pulse on the stuff that we're talking about right now. I just want to say for a moment, I feel so privileged to be able to do these ETTs every week because we're bringing you real executives. These are people that are in the trenches doing the work, not pundits, not people that haven't been doing it for decades, the real individuals. And you are getting such valuable insight. So I hope you come back each and every week. If you want to know about future episodes where these rock stars will be, please go over to workitdaily.com and sign up for our free newsletter. In our newsletter, every single day, Monday through Friday, we tell you about our upcoming events so you can RSVP to them and you can be here because we love to see you here. With that in mind, I just want to say thank you again to our audience. Thank you to our executives. And I hope you all have a great 4th of July next week for those of you celebrating in the US. And until next time, remember, if you want to win, you got to work it daily. Bye, my friends.